Mecenasami Szafy Melomana są Małgorzata Kuziemska-Sławek, Marta Bogusławska, Mirosław Ciupka, Andrzej Kuchno, Anna Rocławska-Musiałczyk, Damian Maćkowski, Jerzy Ablewicz, Paweł Binek, Piotr Bujak, Kamil Zofiński, Dawid Cygan, Dominika Peszko, Michał Derewianko, Magdalena Miro, Anna Proszowska-Sala, Wojtek Politarczyk, Krzysztof Becker, Maria Sławek, Dorota Sawicka, Patryk Jadczak, Wojtek Iwański, Szymon Mechliński, Agnieszka Libiszewska, Leszek Bizoń, Małgorzata Kraszkiewicz-Krzyżanowska, Adam Banaszak, Robert Iżycki, Roman Czura, Kinga Piotrowiak-Junkiert, Maciej Zimka, Karol Lipiński-Brańka, Wojtek Barlik, Paweł Ris, Dominika Glapiak, Bartosz Cyran, Michał Stryszyk, Agnieszka Szynk-Mika, Wiola Durasiewicz, Magdalena Nowikow, Paweł Konik, Jarek Itczak, Mateusz Chrobot, Magda Smalara, Jacek Szachogłuchowicz, Piotr Słonecznik, Paweł Markuszewski, Lilianna Krych, Emilia Lange, Piotr Nike, Aleksandra Ferfecka, Andrzej Girdwoń, Ala Bębenek, Jakub Lorenz, Magdalena Kozłowska, Paulina Machnik, Barbara Szymańska, Łukasz Stefanowski, Piotr Jonek, Marek Kornicki i Paulina Stateczna. Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję za Wasze wsparcie, dzięki któremu pierwszy polski podcast o muzyce klasycznej powstaje, rozwija się. Szafa napełnia się coraz to nowymi materiałami. Pewnie wkrótce będziemy musieli pomyśleć o jakiejś większej przestrzeni. To Wasza zasługa. Przypominam, że Szafę wspierać możecie regularnie w serwisie patronite.pl oraz okazjonalnie, gdy tylko macie na to ochotę, w serwisie Buy Coffee Tu. Linki znajdziecie w opisie. Szafa to nie tylko podcast, ale także obszerne artykuły o muzyce, które co 2 tygodnie wysyłam w formie newslettera dla tych, którzy mnie wspierają, jako wyraz wdzięczności. Bo najlepsze, czym mogę się z Wami dzielić, to wiedza. Zazwyczaj w Szafie Melomana zajmujemy się historią, tą dalszą i tą bliższą. Omawiamy postaci wybitne zarówno w zakresie twórczości, jak i wykonawstwa. Ale przecież wybitny niekoniecznie oznacza należący do historii. Dzisiaj chcę Wam opowiedzieć o pianistce, której talent mnie olśnił, zarówno w nagraniach, jak i na żywo. Mowa o pochodzącej z Malezji Magdalene Ho, której styl jest niezwykle oryginalny. Mając 23 lata zdobyła już kilka laurów konkursowych, ale ma też doświadczenie odrzucenia na dużej imprezie, którą był konkurs Van Cliburna w zeszłym roku. I to odrzucenia tak spektakularnego, że chyba rozsławiło jej nazwisko bardziej niż owe laury. Niedawno Magdalene Ho debiutowała w Polsce, więc skorzystałem z okazji, by posłuchać jej na żywo, ale także by z nią porozmawiać. W dzisiejszym odcinku spróbujemy wspólnie poszukać odpowiedzi na pytanie, na czym polega fenomen stylu jej gry. Przy mikrofonie Mateusz Ciupka, to jest Szafa Melomana, pierwszy polski podcast o muzyce klasycznej. Zapraszam bardzo serdecznie. Słuchaliśmy preludium z preludium chorału i fugi Cezara Franka w wykonaniu Magdalene Ho na konkursie Van Cliburna w 2025 roku. Magdalene Ho rozpoczęła tamten występ od tokaty D-dur Bacha w katalogu Schmidera nr 912. Następnie wykonała właśnie preludium, chorał i fugę Franka. Potem Ragtime, utwór specjalnie na zeszłoroczny konkurs Van Cliburna napisany przez Gabrielę Montero, wenezuelską pianistkę, doskonale znaną polskiej publiczności, bo to laureatka trzeciej nagrody na 13. konkursie chopinowskim w 1995 roku, a swój występ Magdalene Ho zakończyła etiudą w formie walca Camille Saint-Saënsa. Był to zatem występ szalenie wymagający, skomponowany jako rodzaj spójnego recitalu i stanowiący pewną artystyczną całość. W zeszłym roku w ogóle mieliśmy szczęście do takich wielkich konkursów, bo przecież Van Cliburn odbył się w maju, w październiku był konkurs chopinowski, a co najmniej kilku pianistów zagrało na obu tych turniejach, m.in. Piotr Aleksewicz, Jonas Aumiller czy Dawid Hrikuli. Ale nie Magdalene Ho. Po pierwsze, jak sama przyznała w naszej rozmowie, której posłuchacie w tym odcinku, powiedzmy w drugiej jego części, za Chopinem nie przepada. Po drugie, to, co ją spotkało na konkursie Van Cliburna, sprawiło, że przez pewien czas nie dotykała fortepianu. Nieprzypadkowo wybrałem z jej występu tego Franka, ponieważ nie tylko według mnie było to wykonanie rewelacyjne. Ho nie tylko świetnie operowała barwą, efektownie inspirując się brzmieniem organów, ale przede wszystkim udało jej się połączyć dwa żywioły, które współistnieją w tym trudnym utworze. Ścisły kontrapunkt i styl improwizacyjny. No ale to przecież nie wszystko. Jest tam też Bach i Wagner, występujący niemal jednocześnie. To bardzo tajemnicza kompozycja. Frank, jak wiadomo, zerwał z twórczością fortepianową w tym samym momencie, w którym wybuchła we Francji rewolucja roku 1848. Dla niego była to prywatna rewolucja przeciwko ojcu, który wykorzystywał jego niewątpliwy talent do muzyki, by zarobić na nim pieniądze i wyduszał każdego Franka z małego Franka. Mając 25 lat, już nie był dzieckiem, a dorosłym mężczyzną i powiedział temu dość. Ożenił się i wyniósł z opresyjnego domu. Porzucił przy tym fortepian, objął posadę organisty Notre Dame de Lorette w Paryżu i zaczął uczyć. I skupił się na tworzeniu muzyki organowej, w której okazał się mistrzem. Oczywiście przede wszystkim muzyki sakralnej. W 1884 roku Frank wrócił nieoczekiwanie do fortepianu, by na jego klawiaturę przenieść ten duchowy świat, którym zanurzony był przez blisko 40 lat. Powrót ten był zdecydowanie naznaczony duchem Bacha, który niezależnie od tego, czy pisał muzykę świecką czy religijną, zawsze tworzył ad majorem Dei Gloriam. Według Vincenta d'Indy, ucznia Franka, początkowo utwór miał być wyłącznie preludium i fugą w bachowskiej konwencji. Pomysł jednak ewoluował. Frank skomponował środkowy chorał, który stał się niejako centrum, najważniejszym elementem tego dzieła. Posłuchajmy, jak ogromny ładunek emocji on ze sobą niesie, brzmiąc jednocześnie dosłownie jak transkrypcja dzieła organowego. Gra oczywiście Magdalene Ho, oto chorał z preludium chorału i fugi. Frank był twórcą, który przez ład ścisłych form wyrażał wiele późno-romantycznych emocji. Preludium pełne synkopowanych rytmów, burzliwe, nieco rozpaczliwe w wyrazie, przesiąknięte bólem, melancholią, przechodzi w żałobny, lamentacyjny chorał, którego słuchaliśmy przed momentem. Formy ścisłe stają się nie tyle ramą organizacyjną, ile rodzajem archetypu, od którego wychodzi się, aby opowiedzieć coś zupełnie innego. Całość zamyka fuga, o której Alfred Cortot, propagator i miłośnik tej kompozycji, powiedział, że nie wynika, jak u Bacha, ściśle z wcześniejszego materiału muzycznego, ale z psychologicznej potrzeby. Mamy zatem ścisłe formy jako inspirację, mamy narzuconą przez niedyscyplinę, ale jednocześnie dobry pianista potrafi te naczynia wypełnić wrażeniem tworzenia na żywo, komponowania ad hoc, tym co właśnie nazwałem żywiołem improwizacyjnym. Posłuchajmy choć krótkiego fragmentu fugi, o której Saint-Saëns mówił, że to nie jest tak naprawdę fuga, trochę kpiąc z Franka i bodaj niesłusznie. Ta fuga w wykonaniu Magdaleny Ho brzmi, jakby pianistka na poczekaniu tworzyła ten chromatyzujący, archaizujący temat, brzmiący trochę jak z fantazji Swelinka. Tworzyła i snuła go w formie właśnie improwizacji, ale nie bachowskiej, imponującej tworzeniem ścisłej polifonii, co romantycznej ze wszystkimi gwałtownymi zwrotami akcji, poszukiwaniem dużej emocjonalnej siły ciążenia, zabawą, kolorami, a przy tym ciągłym pilnowaniem pulsu wewnętrznego. Posłuchajmy. Nie wiem jak wy, ale ja jestem tym wykonaniem zupełnie oczarowany. Od pierwszych taktów mam poczucie obcowania z interpretacją głęboką, intelektualnie dopracowaną, bardzo wysmakowaną. Innego zdania byli jurorzy konkursu pod przewodnictwem Paula Louisa i nie dopuścili Magdalenę Ho do ćwierćfinału. Są jednak jakieś zalety tego cyfrowego świata, w którym żyjemy, bowiem obserwujący ten konkurs Ben Lodi, autor szalenie popularnego, pianistycznego wideobloga, nagrał pełen zdumienia, by nie powiedzieć oburzenia materiał na ten temat, który dotarł chyba dalej niż sam konkurs, bowiem i ja Van Cliburna nie śledziłem, a ten materiał o Magdalenę Ho, mający zresztą 70 000 odtworzeń, obejrzałem i postanowiłem przesłuchać ten występ, fragmentów którego wspólnie przed momentem słuchaliśmy. Rezultat? Pod nagraniami Ho, zamieszczonymi na kanale YouTube Van Cliburna, mamy komentarze takie jak: kto przyszedł od Bena Lodi, hańba jurorom, ograbiono ją na tym konkursie. Z jednej strony to jest oczywiście opowieść o ogromnym wpływie, który mają twórcy treści w internecie w dzisiejszych czasach. Ben Lodi jest postacią znaną i szanowaną. Ci z was, którzy obserwowali ze mną w zeszłym roku konkurs chopinowski, zapewne wiedzą, że prowadził studio Chopin Talks, omawiał występy, ogłoszenia wyników na poszczególnych etapach wspólnie z Jedem Distlerem, czyli uznanym krytykiem gramofona, no i nagrał masę wartościowych rzeczy, między innymi rodzaj kompendium o muzyce Chopina, w którym rozmawiał z Garrickiem Ohlssonem. I teraz druga strona tego medalu, bowiem ten obóz, jak to się mówi dzisiaj, był akurat skierowany we właściwą stronę i przyniósł po prostu dobry rezultat. Nie był działaniem sam dla siebie. Na każdym konkursie pianistycznym, który na tym świecie się odbywa, dzieją się rzeczy, które jako słuchacze uważamy za akty niesprawiedliwości. Na tegorocznym chopinowskim też takie były, żeby wspomnieć choćby Davida Hrikuliego, który podbił swą charyzmatyczną grą serca publiczności. No i do finału doszedł, ale żadnej nagrody nie otrzymał, co u niektórych wywołało automatyczny niemal okrzyk skandal. Od zawsze powtarzam, że w konkursach muzycznych nie chodzi o sprawiedliwość, są subiektywne, a nie obiektywne i musimy pogodzić się z tym, że nasz faworyt nie przejdzie dalej z powodu takiego czy innego zrządzenia losu. Ja więc ostatecznie nie będę się oburzał na to, co przydarzyło się Magdalene Ho, choć zwracam uwagę na różnicę w skali. Nie mówimy o nieprzyznaniu nagrody na podium, tylko o niedopuszczeniu do grona aż 18 ćwierćfinalistów. Uważam po prostu, że to wyjątkowo skrajny przykład subiektywnej oceny albo chwilowej utraty słuchu, tudzież jakiegoś zamroczenia u pewnej części jurorów. Komentując owo zamroczenie, Anna Geniuszena, wybitna pianistka, powiedziała, że w Magdalene Ho jest coś, co może ma 0,1% pianistów. Prawdziwa spontaniczność, ukryta intensywność, która się nie narzuca, tylko po prostu jest. A może chodziło o jakąś klątwę? Przed Ho 6 pianistów grało to dzieło Franka i żaden dalej nie przeszedł. Zostawmy metafizykę, nie ma tego złego, co by na dobre nie wyszło, bo to odrzucenie sprawiło, że o Magdalene Ho dowiedziało się wielu melomanów i niezależnie od wyniku konkursu, przypominam, że wygrał go Aristo Szam, możemy się Magdalene Ho zainteresować i śledzić jej wykonania. A warto. Kim jest Magdalene Ho? Urodziła się w 2003 roku w Kalifornii, ale dorastała w Malezji. Nie pochodzi z muzycznej rodziny, ale muzyka była w jej życiu obecna od samego początku. W jaki sposób, tego dowiecie się z naszej rozmowy wkrótce. Naukę gry na fortepianie rozpoczęła w wieku lat już 4. 5 lat później, mając 9 lat, przeprowadziła się do Wielkiej Brytanii dzięki stypendium w Purcell School. W latach 2013-2022 uczyła się u Patsy To. Jak sama przyznała, Patsy To była kluczową postacią w jej muzycznym życiu. Była, jest, ma duży wpływ na to, co Magdalena nazywa patrzeniem poza nuty, czyli głębszym rozumieniem tego, co się wykonuje i dlaczego. Sama Patsy to postać niezwykle ciekawa. Obecnie ma 86 lat, wciąż uczy. Przyszła na świat w Szanghaju, mając 8 lat wygrała na konkursie w Hongkongu, następnie przeniosła się do Anglii, podobnie jak Magdalene Ho, i tam zaczęła się już na poważnie kształcić. Po kolejnych triumfach dostała stypendium w Paryżu na lekcje z Yvon Lefebvre, grała przed Alfredem Cortot czy Myron Hess. Zetknęła się zatem z intensywnym, powojennym, paryskim życiem muzycznym. Prawdopodobnie znała także Nadię Boulanger. Wyszła za mąż za Futsonga i żyli razem aż do śmierci tego wybitnego pianisty, bodaj pierwszego chińskiego laureata konkursu chopinowskiego. Przypominam, zajął 3. miejsce w roku 1955. Obecnie Magdalene Ho studiuje pod okiem Dmitrija Aleksiejewa w Royal College of Music. Brytyjscy krytycy zwracają uwagę, że pod okiem Aleksiejewa umiejętności Ho wzrosły, a jej gra się zmieniła. Nabrała siły, szlachetności, pewnego daru przekonywania. Muzyczna komunikacja stała się bardziej bezpośrednia. Pierwszym międzynarodowym sukcesem Magdalene Ho było zwycięstwo w konkursie Klary Haskell w Szwajcarii i zdobycie tam także 3 nagród specjalnych, a zatem zgarnęła całą pulę. W latach 2023 i 2024 wygrała 2 konkursy Royal College of Music i zainteresował się nią prestiżowy magazyn International Piano. W listopadzie 2024 roku jako pierwsza kobieta zdobyła międzynarodową niemiecką nagrodę pianistyczną. Na blogu The Boston Musical Intelligencer bardzo interesująco styl jej gry opisywała Sibyl Barrasso. Ho ma unikatowy styl. Palce są blisko klawiatury. Wydają się niemal na stałe przyklejone do instrumentu, co daje wrażenie, jakby formowała dźwięki w taki sposób, jak formuje się gliniane naczynia. Używa sporo nadgarstka, uginając go często poniżej klawiatury, podobnie jak robił to Glenn Gould. Innym razem unosi dłoń wysoko, uderzając dźwięk kciukiem lub małym palcem niemal pionowo. Wszystko to daje poczucie serdecznej otwartości, dużej wrażliwości na muzykę i na publiczność. Ciekawe są wybory repertuarowe Ho, które pokazują, że jest to pianistka poszukująca swojego muzycznego świata i robiąca to bardzo intensywnie. Gdyby przepuszczono ją dalej w konkursie Van Cliburna, to w ćwierćfinałowym programie miała, uwaga, sonatę dantejską Lista w połączeniu z wariacjami na temat Mein junges Leben hat ein End z Felinka. W tej kolejności. I spuentować to wszystko chciała 7. sonatą Skriabina. Co za niesamowity pomysł. Fascynuje ją obecnie Schumann i Schubert, szczególnie tańce związku Dawida, które regularnie gra. Bach na współczesnym fortepianie jest dla niej podstawą, punktem wyjścia. Fascynowała się organami, pobierała lekcje gry na tym instrumencie. Grała bardzo ciekawe mazurki Thomasa Adesza, swoisty dialog z Chopinem, z którym, jak wspominałem, dotychczas ma nie po drodze. Wyczuwam w tym wszystkim jakąś nić przewodnią, która rozciąga się przede wszystkim na dużej szerokości muzyki północy, muzyki niemieckiej, szczególnie XIX-wiecznej, ale jednocześnie ta nić ma wiele mniejszych rozgałęzień, z których każdy potencjalnie może rozwinąć się w nową pasję. Wspomniany już przeze mnie Jet Distler zauważył Magdalenę Ho i napisał o niej: trudno powiedzieć, gdzie ona będzie za lat 10 czy 20, ale jej pełne pasji podejście do muzyki, całkowite oddanie sztuce, olśniewające wykonania, ogromna siła przekazu przy jednocześnie skromnej prezencji scenicznej wróżą jej sukcesy w życiu oraz piękną karierę w muzycznym świecie. W Poznaniu, gdzie miałem okazję raz posłuchać na żywo gry Magdaleny Ho, wykonywała razem z Filharmonią Poznańską pod kierownictwem Marka Pijarowskiego szalenie popularny koncert fortepianowy Edwarda Grieга. Nie miałem poczucia, aby to był jej ulubiony utwór, ale włożyła w niego całe serce, bez wątpienia. Napisałem wówczas w szafie tak. Jej styl gry definiuje połączenie śpiewności, legata, kantyleny z umiejętnością wydobycia z fortepianu całej palety orkiestrowych barw. Ma silną ekspresję, spala się na scenie. W koncert, będący przecież repertuarowym fajerwerkiem, włożyła całe swoje serce. Ma dar ukazywania dzieł na nowo, tworzenia oryginalnych wizji sprawiających, że na ograne klasyki patrzymy świeżo i bez uprzedzeń. Moją uwagę szczególnie jednak przykuł wtedy jej bis. Zagrała intermezzo A-dur, op. 118 Brahmsa. To przepiękne, czułe intermezzo z jednego z ostatnich opusów dzieł fortepianowych tego kompozytora, w którym niektórzy widzą walc dwojga starszych ludzi, ostatni taniec w kończącym się życiu. Opusy 116, 17, 18 i 19 to zbiory miniatur, które Brahms pisał latem roku 1892, przebywając w Bad Ischl. Są z jednej strony pewnego rodzaju podsumowaniem jego wieloletniego dorobku, rozliczeniem się z nim, jakimś tchnieniem nostalgii, ale i trochę zakamuflowanym wizjonerstwem. Moim zdaniem część z tych utworów musiał mieć w pamięci Arnold Schoenberg, gdy nazwał Brahmsa progresywistą. Z czym oczywiście konserwatywny z pozoru twórca muzyki absolutnej, zapatrzony w Couperena, Mozarta czy Bacha, w pierwszej kolejności się nie kojarzy. Intermezza A-dur w nagraniu Ho nie mam, ale mam intermezzo E-dur z opusu 116 i tego posłuchamy na koniec tego odcinka. Tymczasem dzięki uprzejmości agencji Sonora, która opiekuje się Magdalene Ho, otrzymałem możliwość wykorzystania w tym odcinku fragmentu nagrania kapitalnego dzieła, które mam wrażenie, że stopniowo wraca do łask. Chodzi o 5. koncert fortepianowy Saint-Saënsa. I znów, ci z Was, którzy śledzili uważnie konkurs chopinowski w zeszłym roku, zapewne pamiętają, że na głośnej inauguracji wykonywał ten utwór triumfator roku 2021, czyli Bruce Liu. Koncert otrzymał przydomek egipski, ponieważ znaczne jego fragmenty Saint-Saëns skomponował podczas wakacji w Egipcie. Miesza on w sobie jednak wszelkie egzotyczne inspiracje, widziane przez XIX-wieczną optykę, fascynację Orientem, pod którym kryło się w zasadzie wszystko, co na południowy wschód od Europy się mieści, łącznie z Jawą, Indiami czy Chinami. Chciałbym, abyście posłuchali fragmentu drugiego ogniwa, gdzie tego nagromadzenia egzotyzmu jest sporo, a jednocześnie Magdalene Ho pokazuje wspaniale swoją umiejętność śpiewnego grania, współpracy z orkiestrą, panowania nad muzycznym czasem i jednocześnie zabawy kolorem. Jest tu absolutnie wszystko, co powinno być, aby ten koncert zrobił dobre wrażenie. Andante z 5. koncertu fortepianowego Camille Saint-Saënsa grała oczywiście Magdalene Ho, której partnerowała tutaj znakomicie orkiestra SWR. Nagranie z 31 stycznia 2025 roku dyrygował Kirill Karabic. Nagranie całego tego koncertu dostępne jest na YouTube. Mam ogromną nadzieję, że ten fragment Was zachęcił na tyle, że sięgniecie do opisu, gdzie zamieszczę oczywiście link do tego wykonania. Tymczasem zapraszam Was bardzo serdecznie do wysłuchania mojej rozmowy z Magdalene Ho. Rozmawialiśmy w języku angielskim i postanowiłem na razie przynajmniej zostawić tę rozmowę w oryginale, ponieważ ma ona swój charakter i dynamikę, która w przypadku przekładu i nałożonych głosów lektorskich bezpowrotnie by się straciła. Jeśli jednak uznacie, że potrzeba Wam polskiego przekładu, proszę, napiszcie do mnie wiadomość, a go dla Was przygotuję. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I'm very glad to have you here. I'm very honored by the fact that I'm the first Polish journalist to talk to you, and while the occasion for our meeting is your Polish debut in Poznań with the Poznań Philharmonic. Let me start maybe in a conventional way. What is your first memory about the music?
When I was a kid, like very young, actually from even the moment I was like, even from when my mum was pregnant with me, my parents would play classical music with CDs and so on.
But they are not musicians,
no,
I guess.
No. So I guess my first memory of music was listening to this Bach CD. It started with the B-flat major partita. And there were also some other interesting things like jazz versions of some preludes and fugues and stuff like this. So I think that was like the very first thing I remembered when it comes to music.
Bach plays still a very major role in your repertoire choices and in your, let's say, musical world. Is it bound with that memory that Bach is so important to you?
I don't think it particularly has anything to do with it. Maybe it, kind of developed an appreciation for the composer subconsciously. But the thing is, when I started with music, I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought that if I did the right things, I would get compliments from my parents and people would love me. So,
but it started very, very early. You were only 4. This is not a surprise when it comes to musicians, but 4 is, even for musicians, very early.
I think a lot of Asian parents push their kids to start early because, I don't know, there's a lot of hype around this idea of being a prodigy, being really successful, being smart and special. So I just kind of went along with it, even though I actually just had no idea what I was doing. But when it came to really appreciating Bach and just a deeper understanding of music in general, that came a bit later when I was maybe 8 or 9, and then I moved to the UK.
What was the reason of this moving to UK? Like, was it musical reason, actually?
Yes, I went to go to a boarding school for music. So I would live at the school and I would have 2 piano lessons a week, and everyone else there was also studying some instrument. Interesting environment.
Do you remember that moment of this deeper realization what the music is like? Was it bound with the circumstances of moving somewhere to be in different environment, let's say? Or?
No, actually, it was shortly before that. There was this teacher in Malaysia that I found out about through a family friend's relative. It was by pure coincidence almost. And I went to play to her, and she was like, "What are you doing? This is not music. You don't understand anything." And I was really mad because I was playing the right notes and, everything was correct. But she pointed out that I had to search for something, behind the notes. That was the moment where I realized that I had been approaching everything all wrong because my teachers and people who didn't understand music, like my parents, would understand music as being just something, if you follow the rules on the paper, it will be fine. But when I met this teacher, she helped me to understand more. She also showed us documentaries about composers, about orchestras, about music. And every Sunday there was this listening appreciation class, invite a bunch of her students to her home. And we would sit for a couple of hours and watch a documentary and talk about music. So that's when I started to really get it.
Is it still with you? You are obviously a very young musician, but do you do that still? Do you listen to music? I don't mean your own music, but are you have this curiosity of other interpretations, other visions?
Yeah, of course. I think every musician who respects the art has to be interested in this, because if you just listen to yourself and you don't try to, find inspiration elsewhere, you would just be operating in a vacuum, if that makes sense.
Are these the recordings, for example, of a piano music, or are you treating this listening process as a refuge to, I don't know, opera world, for example, or world of vocal instrumental music, baroque music?
I think I try to listen to a wide range of things. Sometimes I have phases of time where I prefer to listen to something. Like there was a time when I listened almost exclusively to lieder, to art song, and also another time when I was really obsessed with organ music. I don't know why, but listening to recordings of organ music is weird because it's supposed to be performed in a church, but because it's all compressed and the sound is modified in your headphones, is not quite as majestic as it could be. But again, I love Bach and Baroque music, so that makes sense, I guess. But I do listen to a lot of piano music as well. Just sometimes I feel really sick of it because I spend most of my life with this. So I think it's good to listen to as much as possible.
Are you listening to songs to lead? Because your singing way of shaping the phrase on the piano was something that astonished me. And that was one of the first things, obviously, in Frank Chorale, because that was actually the first thing I've heard you playing on a recording.
You know what? It's funny because one of the things I get criticized by my teachers most of all is for not having a singing enough sound. But of course, I'm sure the way the audio is edited might give a different impression. From anyway, but I do try to listen to a lot of lieder. Well, I mean, I don't try to. I do. I like it a lot. And there was also a time when I worked with singers quite a lot, because I just enjoyed, reading through all this repertoire, and, because listening to it is one thing, but to actually play it is it just elevates the experience. So yeah, and then suddenly I had a bunch of things to do. So I unfortunately couldn't work with singers as much as I used to, but I would like to try to get back into that. I think it's one of the greatest forms of music. It's so, it can be so distilled, you don't have the huge bombastic displays that you have in the Wagner opera, but for example, in Schubert's Winterreise, I think he really, the whole gamut of human suffering and those, well, not even just suffering, the whole gamut of human emotions is contained even within such small scale forms. So I think that's why it's great.
You've said about Schubert, but what else?
Schubert was my starting point, so that's how I got into it. And then there was Schumann, of course, all that wonderful, Dichterliebe and the Liederkreis. And then, with French song, I think when I discovered Dupas, the French composer who only wrote, I don't know, how many was it, 16 songs? And then he kind of had a breakdown and stopped composing, which I think is one of the greatest losses to music. His music fascinated me at one point too. Because he really explored so many possibilities in the piano as orchestral almost. I mean, of course, there's orchestra arrangements, but it's just so great to play. And Poulenc as well. I love his songs very much. They're so witty and playful, but also some of them can be so dark and intense.
Have this Poulenc on the table. I've listened to his piano concerto in D minor recently, for two pianos actually, I'm sorry. And it was a fascinating experience. And can you imagine yourself in that piece, playing with somebody else on a second piano?
Definitely. I mean, I think I've lost count of the times I've said to friends of mine who are also pianists, oh yeah, let's play this, and then it just never happens because
because nobody has time.
Nobody, and we're never in the same place at the same time, and then you have to find an opportunity to perform it, and that can be difficult logistically. But I would definitely welcome an opportunity to play this, or actually any double concerto Mozart too. And there's one by, I think, Martinu, the Czech composer. I can't remember. I haven't listened to it, but someone was telling me about it, and that interested me, but I haven't checked it out, unfortunately. Yeah, but I think playing with other people anyway in general is the highest form of. I think it can give you so much more satisfaction than just playing by yourself.
That's very interesting because your participation in many competitions puts you obviously in a role of a soloist, of a virtuoso, and this is something that you do basically alone.
Yeah. And of course, because it's not that it's an inferior form of music making. I don't think that at all. I think competitions are like inherently problematic, right? Yeah, I'm sure the many voices on the internet have waxed poetic about this topic for a while now, since Chopin competition also happened and everyone was so mad about everything. I didn't follow it, so I can't comment. But
I'm very happy that you didn't follow, because I was afraid we will have to talk about this, and we all are pretty much fed up with that.
Yeah, well,
let's come back for a second to this topic of these inspirations, because we only touched the topic of songs, and you've mentioned also organ music, and this is interesting. Is this a way with which Franck came to you?
Oh no, I mean the Franck was introduced to me just because when I was like 14 or 15, my piano teacher said, you should play this. And me being a stupid kid, I was just like, okay. And I thought
14 or 13 or 14 for Franck?
Well, I mean, look, there's kids who are like 5 playing the complete Chopin etudes. So, it only gets crazier. But anyway, at that time, I really didn't understand anything. I mean, I knew there were religious implications. My teacher gave me the edition by Alfred Cortot, where he wrote, like, basically on every page, half of each page was just notes on the text, on interpretation, on technical tips, and so on and so on. So, of course, I had an inkling of what was going on, but the soul of the piece was something that I didn't entirely understand. And I still don't think I do. I mean, it's one of those pieces that every time I come back to it, you discover something more, with this mystical nature and everything. And I decided to bring it back because my interest in organ music was mainly when I was like 17, 18, around this time. And I took some organ lessons for a while, which were quite fun, actually.
I wanted to ask you about that. Did you play? Completely different world. Yeah,
it is. I mean, the organ that was at my school that I mainly used wasn't great. It only had like 8 stops, all right. But it introduced me to a new way of understanding the keyboard. And I also figured out that you can control. People often think like with the organ you just press the note and that's it. But you can kind of control the attack and decay with how you press it and the speed with which. But anyway, I won't get into that because I would just go on a tangent. Anyway. I learned and studied some Bach chorale preludes and some fugues, and also I played a piece by Franck. There's a prelude, fugue, and variation, which a lot of pianists also love to play. But after doing this, I think I gained a slightly increased awareness of counterpoint, voice leading. I started to think about that more, and then when I came back to the Franck this year, I mean, it's been a while since I last touched an organ. And also, one of my favorite pieces ever is the other 3 chorales for organ by Franck. That's like the peak of all his achievement. But I'm not sure how familiar these are for people who are not in the, I don't know, even maybe pianists don't know them that well. But I was really fascinated by them. And so yeah, I think listening to all of this stuff fed into what I tried to do with the conception of this prelude, chorale, and fugue.
One of my friends who is a pianist told me that the other friend who is organist taught him very important lesson when it comes to some kind of a mentality that you have as a pianist, that when you play the organ and you abandon the key, the melody, the sound disappears. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, it doesn't happen on a piano because if you got a pedal, so you can sustain it. But actually, you shouldn't abandon the sound. Never let it go. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there's this kind of feeling that using the pedal is like cheating a little bit. And a lot of teachers talk about the importance of finger legato.
Yes.
And, you can't cut corners with this. And I mean, I always catch myself falling into the traps of laziness. So I do try to, that is one valuable lesson I also remember learning when I was taking organ lessons. But, I'm human, so I forget sometimes as well.
Let's come back to the story. We've started and we went to the areas of inspirations and so on. But all right, you are in a boarding school in Great Britain. what happened next? Like,
I literally didn't practice when I was at school. It was mainly when I went home for holidays, and I had literally nothing to do because I have no friends in Malaysia. So I would just stay at home all day and practice. But when I was actually at school itself, like I was honestly awful. Like I didn't behave well. I was always, causing trouble and stuff like that for a while. But I was lucky to have literally one of the best and most. My piano teacher was, I think, a musician of great integrity. One of the most respected figures in my life. I think she really made me into who I am because I was with her for those 9 years, and she studied in Paris anyway. With when all these important figures were there. And
we are talking about Patsy.
Patsy, yeah, I'm talking about Patsy. Yeah, Patsy Tor. And she also introduced me to all these recordings, and I had no idea about them before. But other than the musical development, she also made sure that the human side of everything was also considered. So, if I was, because I don't know, 11-year-olds get upset about stupid stuff, and she was always there. She was always someone that I felt I could talk to.
Not only about music.
Not only about music, yeah. But and because music is a funny thing because it's it's music, but it's also so connected to the human emotions and teachers and mentors and people in places in important places like that. They can have such an influence,
huge one,
on their students. And I was lucky to have a good person in that position for me. So I'm forever very grateful to her. She's like 85 now, and she still teaches there. And every year she tells me, I'm going to retire. This is it. Well, she said
that's the final year, and it's not.
She said she was going to retire after I left, but that was 3 years ago.
All right.
And she's still there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think that when she goes, the school will have lost a really wonderful person.
That's like with Nadia Boulanger, isn't it? Because that story, it's very similar to Nadia Boulanger, because I remember I've met some students of Nadia Boulanger, and they told me almost everyone, that in a way she was able to open their minds, their imagination, that they were sitting in her room, for example, in Rue Balou in Paris, and a roof started to disappear, and you see this only sky, unlimited sphere above you.
Yeah. I think I don't know if Patsy ever met Nadia Boulanger. I think I asked her once, but I can't remember what she said. But they were definitely in the same city.
That circle, yeah, and
at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I just remember learning things like being introduced to things like Liszt, Année de Pèlerinage, and she would explain to me, what the concept of, a year of pilgrimage would be. These artists would go to the mountains, and she would always say, you should go. And I was like, how? I have no one to take me. So I had to content myself with imagining beautiful landscapes with the music. But anyway, she taught me so much, and I'm indebted to her. But I also want to add one thing, and she was married to the pianist Fusong. I'm sure made his name in Poland.
Absolutely.
And he was also a musician of great integrity. And he was the one with the main career. He was flying all over the place while she was taking care of the kid, and that kind of thing. But this, I would sometimes ask Patsy, like, did you not feel like you had to give a lot up because of this? And she said, yes, of course, there were sacrifices to be made. But I mean, from what she said, I still think that she managed to have an extremely fulfilling life in music. And it's this humility that really I respect so much. And it made me realize that, like, fame and winning competitions and going around, it of course is good, but it's just part of it. It doesn't say anything about who you truly are as a musician, and is not part of the essential meaning. To truly be a musician, a respectable musician, you have to be humble and willing to make sacrifices. And that's why I respect Patsy so much for this. It doesn't make her any less of a musician or a pianist, but I think it's really great.
I wanted to ask about that. I wanted to ask about what creates this true musician, because I agree with you. Competition doesn't show that. Any kind of competition.
No.
But what does? Recordings? For example?
I don't know. I mean, you have people like, I mean, a lot of people said of the pianist Rubinstein that he was never really at his best in the recording studio.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what other pianist it was. It was Godowski or something, that people would say he was be terribly nervous in concerts, but if you heard him playing privately in his house, it'd be great. But unfortunately, that's an experience restricted to very few people.
It is huge stage fright. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. And sometimes, I don't know, it's difficult because with let's say with like a competition like Kleiben, you have at least one chance in the first round, and it gets broadcast to so many people, and you can either prove yourself or not, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And anything could happen. You could be sick. You could have your dog could have died the day before or something. And I don't know. It's such a fragile thing that's subject to so many factors. So I mean, it's really easy to criticize others, especially when you're fighting for your own place. But I think after observing all of this, you start to question more things about what you see.
Great triumph in 2023, the Clara Haskell competition. That was your first, let's say, big thing that happened and made you famous.
It wasn't famous.
And then it was a historic triumph. As the first woman, you gained the International German Pianist Award.
Yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't call it historical because it's only been going for about 13, 14 years.
No, but that was first time, so that is history.
Yeah, well, who cares? This year it was all men competing anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, what's the point? Yeah.
And then we got 2025, Clyburn, the biggest of these three, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest.
I mean, they definitely have the most money, and they put a noticeable amount of effort into marketing and streaming and social media and all that stuff. And
what happened there was something that I don't know if it didn't make you more famous than the previous ones. That means the rejection after the first round. How did you feel about that?
Well, of course, when they announced the results, I was really bummed out.
Yeah, because it happened too early. Absolutely.
I mean, whether it did or not, it was just kind of like, ugh. I practiced all those hours, and now I don't get to play like half of these pieces. Yeah. Seriously. And then I saw all this stuff coming, and I thought it was quite funny for a bit, but then I started to feel a bit sick. Mm-hmm. After the competition, I didn't touch the piano for like a month for various reasons, and then I went to this kind of piano course thing in Vienna where I was lucky to hang out with a bunch of musicians, like other pianists, for 2 weeks. And then I was like, okay, so this is what music is about, I mean, a lot of them were, funnily enough, at the course to prepare for competitions. But it was nice to meet them and talk to them, and some of them I even competed against before. And it just felt much more like this is a sense of real community, and we're finally out of that nasty parallel world of fighting against each other for money or whatever. And then after that, I felt better. But I largely just tried not to think about the whole Kleiben thing too much. I saw it as a kind of, it's just going to be a funny story to tell, I don't know, my students in 20 years. I don't know. Like, it's only one, whatever the case, it's only one 40-minute video out there, and people can think whatever they want of it. And fortunately, a lot of that reaction has been positive, but it's only one thing. And there are also many videos of myself out there that I'm not exactly proud of. But I think it's as I said earlier, people have bad days, and not everything is going to be exactly how you want it and great. But if you can be honest about that, is important. Of course, you need to strive for the highest standard, and that was what I was doing when I played in Fort Worth. And every time I play, I would hope. But we have to keep the standard, basically. And I don't want to be satisfied with myself. This happened, so I'm going to be I need to move on. I have moved on from it entirely, I think. I mean, of course, it was really nice to read the supportive comments, but then I realized that it was like making my ego a bit too big, and I was like, stop! I need to not, I need to not go there. I'm just, I mean, of course, well, this probably doesn't make me sound very good, but I'm just trying to be honest with how how everything went. So.
There's a dangers of positive and negative reinforcement by the social media, by this feedback. Both can be a trap, basically, because hate is also shaping, or I would say rather destroying our rational observation of about ourselves.
Yes, and I also realized more and more how, like, why is music so connected to our ego in a way, because if I often felt like, if someone said that I didn't play well or something, I used to be so sensitive to these things. I would take it so personally. I would be obsessing about it for days. I would feel almost like morally, like I had done something morally bad by, playing Chopin badly or something. Of course, it's not a moral question. That would be ridiculous. But because it's so intensely bound up with yourself, and because I've been living like this since I was 4 years old, it goes back so far. That's why it kind of, there's this kind of...
It's a part of you, basically.
Yeah, but once I realized this, I was like, okay, no, I need to not think like that. And then I can do actual constructive work and improve without being too upset about things that are not worth getting that upset about, Because, of course, it's not nice when a teacher tells you that you play like crap. But it's not personal. And it's not... If you take it personally, it doesn't help. So. And
when we talk about ego, once you've said in one of these short interviews that you pianists are, performers are vessels in which composers put their pieces, their art. And I thought to myself, when I've listened to these recordings that are available of your playing, that in your playing is much more than that. In my opinion, there is much of a creation. I don't mean, obviously, adding something to the text, but I mean, when it comes to the interpretation, there is much more. You're making these pieces very, very original. It is this feeling, I know it pretty well after the Chopin competition, is like something that I hear for the first time. And that displays some kind of an originality that is out of question. So that is not only a vessel, this is creation.
Yeah, I think, you have vessels that can be plain and vessels that can be beautifully painted. I don't know.
Right.
I don't really know how to talk about this. I remember once in an interview, the interviewer was asking me a question along these lines, and he was like, what do you mean by doing interesting stuff? And I had no idea how to answer him. So regarding my approach, I just, I look at the text. I try to be faithful to the text. I try to bring out the things that I think are important. Of course, through consulting with teachers and people who are more experienced. And then the final product is something that changes slightly every time. There's no two interpretations will be the same, hopefully. If there is something a bit wrong and weird. But yeah, I don't know. It's not something that I consciously try to, let's be original, because what does that even mean? I don't really know. I appreciate the compliment very much, so thank you. But I often feel like if people ask me to explain what this is all about, I really don't know.
Yeah. Oh, because you basically, in a way, speak with this music, with this interpretation. You don't have to use words. We are the ones who have to use words to describe it. But there is something. Would you describe yourself as a risky player? You like to take risk in your interpretations.
So you mean playing lots of wrong notes?
No. Being brave and doing something original doesn't always mean to playing wrong notes, but obviously, that might be a consequence.
I don't know. Sometimes in a live performance, I would think, okay, let's try this, and sometimes it doesn't turn out quite right, but at least I tried it.
I wanted to ask, when this risk comes, is it on the level of live playing, or this is something that you consciously do on a level of shaping your interpretation? You know that doing something like that will be risky, but you know that you want to do this. Or is it a spontaneous idea while performing?
I don't know. What do you mean by risk? It's a funny word when it's used in the context of classical music. I often think about this because when you talk about, pilots being risky, like it's actually risky because you might die.
Yeah.
No one's going to die if I play something weird on the piano, hopefully. So I don't know. So you mean things that are slightly unconventional, I guess? Or,
yes, obviously.
I don't know. I never thought I was that unconventional, actually.
When we listen to your Bach, for example, that toccata from this competition, it has many, many rubatos, many improvising style put into that. And obviously, this is a way you may play Bach, but not every pianist choose this way. This is a risky way, obviously, because this is very strict form. This is very architectural thing. Although it may seem improvisational, but you go with this improvisational way and...
Okay, I think with Bach it's funny because obviously he lived so many years ago and he played on instruments that were so different from the modern piano. And you have various like groups of people who think the Bach should be played like this, the Bach should be played like that, which honestly is just...
it's dull, yeah.
And you have people like Glenn Gould, who I really admire because he was kind of just like, yeah, you guys go screw yourselves, and he just played like the way he played, and everyone knew it was the way he played. I mean, it's not my ideal way of playing Bach, but I respect his total commitment. I don't know. There's a lot of room for creativity there because again, we're playing transcriptions. Like we're not playing on the actual instruments that he was playing on. And I wonder what he would do if he had access to a modern piano with a pedal and everything. Some people get really irritated about using the pedal in Bach, or even a bit of rubato. But I don't think. I mean, we don't know if he would have been necessarily opposed to it or not. I think as long as there is a logic to the interpretation of the piece, and there's some consistency and conviction, then it's okay. I don't think you have to use a specific kind of articulation or touch or anything. I think that's a bit.
I want to also ask you about the taste. You wanted to connect Liszt, the Dante sonata, with Svelling in a next stage of Clyburn.
But they had other plans.
Yes, they had other plans. But, for example, you've combined Schumann with Liszt, Fauré with Brahms. These are like unconventional things. Where is now this area that you like the most? What is your favorite, let's say, I don't know how to call it, because this is not a school of composers, maybe a certain name, maybe a certain style, or the world?
Oh, so what kind of music do I like to play the most?
That's the very much simpler way to put my question. Yes.
I mean, it would be fun to talk about programming too, because that's a different thing. But my favorite composers are probably Schubert and Schumann. Also, two of the most awfully difficult to interpret. But yeah, I don't know if it was the leader thing or what, but Schubert and Schumann both hold a very special place. Bach, obviously.
Yes.
So yeah, those are probably my top three. Not very unconventional taste.
And not French composers, because I can see, like with this Franck, but also with fantastic performance of Saint-Saëns, I sense particular sensibility to the color. It is something that is bound strongly with French music.
That's a very nice compliment, thank you. Unfortunately, I can't play French music yet. I think Franck and Saint-Saëns, that one thing, okay, Franck is almost Germanic. This is obviously a comment that might be very controversial, but I think when it comes to Debussy, Ravel, that's a totally different thing. And that's the stuff that it's like a mystery to me. Every time I sit down in front of that stuff, I feel completely lost. I do not know what I am doing. because there's a different language, a different idiom. And as a result, I guess I have to admit that I've been a bit scared of programming this sort of stuff. Foray is the closest I got, and it's still, part of that world, even though it is going towards it a bit more.
Foray could be also very different because it's early nocturnes and these late nocturnes are...
I mean, the harmonic language is quite forward-looking already, but things like texture, I think it's still fairly 19th century romantic. But the innovations of Debussy and Ravel have me completely lost. That is something I hope to explore more in the future. When as I get more experience, and then hopefully I will program more of that stuff. But at the moment, I am honestly so scared of that kind of music and try to avoid playing it in public as much as I can.
I have to ask about this guy. I'm sorry, Chopin.
It's kind of the same. I stupidly programmed his preludes in some concerts in
whole cycle.
Yeah, in January and February, and now I'm just sitting here scratching my head, thinking, why did I do that? But I think the preludes, each one is like a little jewel, a little miniature. I love the idea of being able to explore the endless possibilities within. It's like a whole shimmering spectrum of colors. All these different keys and the different moods and emotions. I thought that would be fun. It kind of reminds me of some of these cycles by Schumann, with I don't know.
Unterblätter, yeah.
Exactly. And I thought, okay, that might be a place to start. And then I opened the book and I was like, oh God. But you can't, I guess if I am going to face the eternal demon of attempting to play Chopin, I have to do it now, else I'll never do it. So, I mean, of course I played Chopin when I was younger, and Patsy would always say, this is not your composer. I said, yeah, I know. But as a pianist, you can't avoid him. I don't think, at this age at least, I should be avoiding composers. I should try everything. And in the future, if I don't feel comfortable with it, I don't have to program it. Yes. But I think it's just good to learn as much as you can now, especially while my brain is still somewhat functioning. And but thank you for reminding me that I need to stop ignoring the certain parts of the piano repertoire that I am too scared to play.
Yeah. Grieg.
How I feel about Grieg.
Yes. This concerto is like a top thing to play. Very popular. People love it.
Yeah, I think.
Do you love it?
I don't love it. I don't think it's okay, to be honest, I find it a little bit cheesy. I don't think it's insincere or disingenuous. I just think it's a bit cheesy. But of course it's extremely beautiful, and I love the Norwegian folk elements, of course. But I think the more I play it with orchestra, the more I appreciate it. I played it in Romania as well last week, and I had a great time. And I'm sure that tonight will also be a really enriching experience. It's not, a late Beethoven sonata, obviously, yes. And it doesn't pretend to be, thankfully. Yeah. But I think that it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and I'm so glad that I have the privilege of sharing it with people who are willing to come and torture themselves as I play. Anyway.
20th century. Contemporary music, let's say.
I don't think I've played enough. I have played some. I'm not really scared of it in the same way that I'm scared of the Impressionists. Of course, it's a bit of a headache trying to figure out the notes and that kind of thing. But 20th century music is such a broad term. What does it even mean?
Yes,
it can be anything from Stravinsky to like Philip Glass or yeah. But I accidentally on purpose programmed a piece by Morton Feldman in next year in a concert in France. It's called Palais de Marie, and it's about 22 minutes long, 24 minutes, and it's just kind of this landscape of soft, hypnotic sounds. Nothing really happens. It's just kind of like dong, dong, and I mean I'm sure that everyone's going to fall asleep, but whatever. But I think it's fascinating because my manager Stahu is a big fan of Feldman, and he kind of persuaded me to keep this in the program. And I think it's really fascinating how the most abstract emotions and concepts can be explored in the music of the 20th century. And I also played a couple of etudes by Ligeti and that kind of thing.
And let me remind you that on your first and only, for now, CD, you've recorded Messiaen.
Yes, but I mean, those were the Messiaen preludes. That was basically like the first major opus he came out with on the piano anyway. And they're very Debussy-esque. And they're really quite beautiful. Unfortunately, I have barely any recollection of learning them or even playing them. And I think that CD, it's kind of it's just juvenilia in my eyes. I don't think it's not an achievement that I'm particularly proud of.
You've recorded that being, 16 or 17?
I was 15.
Or 15 even, yeah.
Not that
it was released when you were 16, I guess, 2000.
Yeah, not that it matters.
yeah, right.
But I think, well, it was, I really was fascinated by these pieces when I was learning them, actually. And I thought they had such a special sound world. And I enjoyed it very much. But me being an irresponsible teenager didn't practice them enough, and then the CD was what it was. I really think that I would love to get into playing more contemporary music.
Right.
Let's put it like this. But, there's just so much in the piano repertoire. It's impossible to cover everything.
I obviously have to recommend you Czech music. And I can easily imagine your style of playing in Janacek's cycle, In the Mists or On the Overgrown Path. Fantastic things. And try this. So how do you shape the program of a recital? What is your way? Because you clearly can, for example, combine the early music, Orlando Gibbons spelling, with romantic pieces, with Baroque pieces. What is your way to do that?
I don't know. Sometimes I will, over a certain period of time, there will be like a large-scale work that I will be fascinated by. Let's take, for example, Schumann's Davidsbundertänze. And then when different concert presenters will ask for different requirements in the program, so sometimes it will be, can we have 1 hour? Can we have specifically these composers? So I try to get as much information from all these various requests as much as I can and combine things together in a way that makes sense. But obviously I don't want to just play I try to balance programs, so I don't want to play programs that are all Russian or programs that are just Beethoven or things like this. For the most part, the pieces that I play, the repertoire that I pick is pretty conventional. But throwing a few early pieces, early music, bits of early music repertoire in there also can't hurt. And also recently, I was playing these mazurkas by the British composer Thomas Adesh, who is only about 50 years old. He's a really great contemporary composer alive right now. I don't think there's a specific formula I can give, but there are things that I do try to think about, as I said, the balance between the genres and styles, also the relationships between the tonalities of the different pieces, and sometimes even some sort of story. I don't like using this word, but there are ways of tying programs together that form a sort of vague narrative. I'm not talking literally and then a series of events, but there's a sort of overarching feeling. I like imagining my recitals as one long journey rather than bits and pieces. So structurally there are some considerations there too.
The last question I want to ask you: how do you feel about the future of your own playing, about music in this totally crazy world? Because what you do demands a lot of concentration, and I think that one of the most problematic things globally, the short attention span, social media, 20 seconds, everything is fast, And here we have a kind of a discrepancy. The world is going totally opposite way than the music, especially from the past when people had much more time and both for creating these things and for listening to them.
sometimes I worry about myself because I realize that my own attention span is also getting shorter and shorter. And I find myself distracted in practice sessions. I'm sure every musician who is, I mean, let's be honest, every musician always has a temptation to look at the phone, you know, and there are many distractions. But in the past, people also had their own issues as well. Of course, it was different back then and time moved differently. But I don't think classical music is going to die or anything. I mean, a lot of people seem to be worried about this, but I feel like more and more people are aware of it, at least more than ever. Like, I mean, look at even in the case of just the Chopin competition, as awful as all the publicity might feel, at least it's reaching more people. Even if people just tune into their live stream for 10 seconds and they turn it off and they don't really listen, at least they will have heard of somebody called Chopin, you know. So I think there can be good things that come out of the internet and social media when it comes to, you know, the future of classical music. For me personally, I don't use social media because I think it's just too much of a hassle and I can't be bothered to do all that stuff, to be honest. Also, it just annoys me. I don't know. But that's just a personal choice. I think it helps me to focus on what's more important, and also not being on social media helped me to not be as stuck in the whole Kleiben thing as much as I might have been if I had, you know, Facebook or whatever. So for the future of my own playing and my career, I'm very lucky to have a lot of good people who support me, like my teachers, my manager, my family, my friends, everyone. And the only thing that I can do is be grateful for what I have, recognize that I'm very lucky, and just keep working. I don't know. Sometimes when I'm dealing with something stupid, like, I don't know, paying my electricity bills, I'm like, how am I doing this and then also a musician at the same time? Because it's just like life has so many different things you have to think about at the same time. But, you know, you just take things one step at a time, and so far it's been okay. So hopefully it will continue to be okay.
Let's hope so. Magdalene, thank you. Thank you for your time, especially that it's before the concert. Good luck today, and we're gonna listen to some music, I guess, now.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to talk. Sorry if my answers were not so concise, but thank you very much.
They were yours, and people wanted to hear your voice, and they heard. Thank you.
Thanks.
To była Magdalene Ho, z którą rozmawiałem w Poznaniu 6 grudnia 2025 roku po jej polskim debiucie z Filharmonią Poznańską. To już wszystko w tym odcinku. Następny odcinek już za 2 tygodnie. Powracamy w nim już do tematów historycznych. Bohaterem audycji będzie John Dowland z okazji przypadającej w lutym 400. rocznicy śmierci tego genialnego angielskiego lutnisty i kompozytora. Wiem, że wielu z Was bardzo na tę opowieść czeka. To była Szafa Melomana, pierwszy polski podcast o muzyce klasycznej. Za uwagę dziękuję Wam serdecznie Mateusz Ciupka i na pożegnanie raz jeszcze Magdalene Ho oraz obiecane intermezzo E-dur z opusu 116 Johannesa Brahmsa.